Welcome to the Unfuckwithable Woman, the podcast for the woman reclaiming her power at the root. I'm Briony Montgomery, somatic therapist, writer, founder of the Somatherapy Collective, and I have spent over 20 years doing this work in my own body, in my own lineage, and with hundreds of women who were done performing their healing and ready to actually live it. This podcast is where we go deep into the nervous system, into the mother line, into the places in your body that have been waiting, sometimes your whole life, for someone to finally say, you are not broken, you are being remembered. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad you found your way. If you've been here a while, you know what I do. Let's go deeper. There's a question I get asked more than almost any other. More than how do I regulate my nervous system? More than how do I stop people pleasing? More than how do I get out of freeze? The question is this: do I have to confront my mother to heal the mother wound? And underneath that question always is something softer, something more frightened, something that sounds like, because I can't do that. She's not well enough. She won't understand. She'll fall apart. She'll turn it around. I'll destroy what little we have. She's already gone. She's already dead. I don't even know who she is. And sometimes quietly, the truest version of that question, because part of me still loves her, and I don't want to blow that up. So today, this episode is for every single one of you who has held that question in your chest like a stone. And the answer is no. You do not need to confront your mother to heal your mother wound. You do not need to have a single conversation with her. You do not need her understanding, her apology, her acknowledgement, her presence, or even her aliveness. Because the mother wound I work with, the one I've spent over 20 years tending in myself and in the women I work with, is not primarily about her. It is about the rupture within you, within your lineage, within the culture that shaped you, and ultimately, and this is the piece that changes everything, it is about your rupture with the great mother herself, with earth, with life, with the source of all belonging. That is what we are healing today. So let's begin. I want to start by completely reframing what the mother wound is, because most of what you'll find out there in the books, in the Instagram posts, the therapy rooms, frames the mother wound as the wound from your mother, as in she did something or didn't do something that left a mark on you. And yes, that is part of it. Of course it is. But that framing keeps the wound small. It keeps it personal. It keeps it between two people in a memory from childhood way back when. And the mother wound is much larger than that. The mother wound is a rupture in the thread of belonging that should run from you back through your mother, back through her mother, back through the mother line, all the way to the original mother, the earth, to the source. When that thread is broken or has been broken for generations, you feel it as a chronic sense that you don't belong anywhere. You're like the black sheep, a hunger that nothing seems to fill, a difficulty trusting life itself, not just people, but the ground beneath you, a deep, nameless grief that visits you in quiet moments, a body that can't fully rest, that stays braced, that waits. This is not pathology. This is intelligence. Your body is responding to a real rupture, a real loss, a real inheritance. And here is what I need you to understand, because this changes the entire nature of the healing work. Your mother was likely handed this wound herself. She received it from her mother or an experience around her. Her mother received it from her mother, who received it in the context of a culture, a patriarchal, hierarchical, extractive, colonized culture that has been severing women from their bodies, from their knowing, from each other, and from the earth for a very, very long time. Your mother is not the origin of this wound. She is the portal. She is the carrier of it. And so until you do this work, so are you. This is not about excusing harm. Some mothers caused real devastating harm. We do not minimize that here at all. We hold it, we grieve it, we rage about it. But harm and wound are not always the same thing. And healing the wound does not require the person who carried it to you to do anything at all. This is about you, your body, your lineage, your wholeness. So I want to talk to you about what that actually means. In the work that I do and have done for over 20 years, the work I do is rooted in Jungian archetypal psychology, in somatic therapy, in energy healing, in decolonized feminine wisdom, in matriarchal ways of living. There is an archetype I return to again and again when we talk about the mother wound, and that's the death mother archetype. First named by the Jungian analyst Marion Woodman, the death mother is not your mother. She is an internalized figure, a pattern, a voice, a posture the nervous system has learnt to take. She is the inner voice, the inner critical voice that tells you to stay small, don't want too much, don't feel that, don't be too much, don't be too loud, don't shine, you are not safe here. She lives in the body as chronic contraction, as freeze, as the inability to receive, as perfectionism that punishes you for being human, as the martyr, as the white savior, as the part of you that shuts down your own aliveness to stay safe. The death mother isn't evil. She was once protective. She arose in you and in your mother as a response to a world that was not safe for full, feminine, whole, authentic, innate expression. But she can become the primary relationship that you have within yourself. And this is where the real wound lives. Not out there with your mother, but in here, in how you mother yourself. And this is where the maiden to mother journey becomes everything. Because what we are doing in this healing, what all of this work is moving toward is this. We are calling home every part of yourself you exiled because it wasn't safe. Your rage, your grief, your wildness, your hunger, your sensuality, your no, your voice, your knowing, your softness, your need. Every part of you that was too much for someone who couldn't hold it. Every part of you that got locked away to keep the peace. Every part of you that learnt it was too dangerous to be fully alive. We call all of those parts back. And we learn to mother them. Not the way you were mothered, but the way we needed to be mothered. We become the mother that we're waiting for. This is not a metaphor. This is not positive thinking. This is somatic, relational, embodied work, and it changes the nervous system. It changes the body. It changes what you pass forward and also heals what you have been through. The maiden becomes the mother, not by having children, but by becoming the source for herself. The mother wound is collective. I need to say something that doesn't get said enough in healing spaces. The mother wound is not just personal. It is not just ancestral. It is political. We live in a mother wound, death mother culture, a culture organised around extraction of resources, of labour, of bodies, of land, a culture that places productivity above rest, achievement above belonging, individual above community, hierarchy above reciprocity, a culture that has severed the sacred from the ordinary, the feminine from power, the body from truth. And in that culture, your mother was not just your mother. She was a woman trying to survive and trying to prepare you to survive in a system that was not built for your flourishing. The hypervigilance she passed to you, the martyrdom, the self-sacrifice, the shrinking, the suppression of rage, the distrust of your body, these are not character flaws. These are survival adaptations in a patriarchal, extractive culture. And here is why this matters to your healing. When you heal your mother wound, when you reclaim your parts, regulate or be in flow with your nervous system, reroute yourself into belonging, you are not just healing yourself, you are breaking a transmission. You are saying, this pattern ends with me. You are doing it for the child you once were, for the mother you might be, in whatever form that takes, for the daughters and the sons and the children who come after, for the ancestors and the women in the lineage who never had the language, the space, the safety to do this work. And you are in your body, in your own daily life, becoming a small act of cultural revolution. Because a woman who is rooted in herself, who can feel, who can rage, who can grieve, who belongs to herself, is a woman who cannot be easily extracted from. She is, in the truest sense, unfuckwithable. And when women like that gather in communities, in circles, in mother lines that are healing, we begin to reconstruct something that was taken away from us. A matrilineal way of living, reciprocity, connection, care at the center, children and women and earth held as sacred. This is the collective healing, and it always begins in one body, in yours. Another question I get asked as well about healing the mother wound is how to actually do this in tangible daily ways. I get it. Like, how do we get into the how? How do we do this? And I want to be honest with you before I do talk about this. I am going to offer you practices here that are real and that work, but I also want to name that this work is the most powerful when you do it relationally with a somatic therapist who can help you map your own nervous system, your own story, and your own lineage. Because your map is specific to you, and the body does this work better when it's witnessed. That said, here is how you tend the mother wound in your everyday life, not once, not in a retreat, daily. Because this wound is tended into you daily by small moments, small silences, presence, small ruptures, small repairs, and it is tended out of you the same way. So let's begin with one practice that I always begin with in clinical settings and with students is grounding into the body. We ground into the body first before we do any practices. We do this daily. We do this multiple times a day because we start to understand in our system what safety feels like, what ground feels like, what anchoring and connection feels like in the body. And we do this with a really simple practice by just placing our feet flat on the ground. And when we place our feet flat on the ground, we just notice how the body feels when it's connected to the ground beneath us, to the stability beneath us. And we just notice, what does that feel like to connect? to the ground underneath you. What do you notice in the body? How do you notice what you notice in the body? So how do you know if you're feeling much more calm or settled? How do you know that's here in the body? Is your breath a little deeper? And if you deepen your breath, what does it feel like? What are the qualities here as you deepen your breath? What do you notice in deepening your breath? And we bring space to that connection, to that sense of stability that we feel underneath our feet in connection to the surface beneath us. And once we start to understand this kind of grounding practice, this anchoring practice in the day-to-day, we can start to understand what it feels like to be held, to feel safe, to feel in the body, to feel calm, to feel more present. And once we have that, then we can start to build on other practices. And another really wonderful practice that I like to do is to map the death mother in the body. And not as a concept, as a sensation. So when you think about death mother, and if you don't know what death mother is and you'd like to know more, then I invite you to check out episode 14 of the podcast, where we go much deeper into the archetype of the death mother. Or you can look at my website, thesomatherapycollective.com, where I talk also at length in different places and spaces on the blog, and also podcast in and around what the death mother archetype is and how it shows up. So when you have an understanding of the death mother and you could kind of picture her in your mind's eye and kind of get this sense of sensation of what the quality of the death mother is to you. And the invitation here is to be curious about what she feels like, what the sensation is associated with the death mother, and where does she live within you, within your body? Just be curious. First thought, best thought. And where do you brace when you're in connection or in relation to the death mother? Just be curious. Where do you contract? Where do you go numb or small? What sensations are you noticing with just being aware of this death mother energy? For some women, it can be in the throat, it can be in the chest, they can have sensations in the belly, in the jaw, even in the pelvic area. So as you begin to notice these sensations in the body, I want you to be aware of just staying with the sensation without trying to fix it, without trying to attach to it the story in and around the death mother when when she's present and when she arrives and when she's inhabiting and present here in the body. Just notice, don't bring any story to her being here. Just be with the sensations in the body and be reflective and curious. Can move into a space of just gently questioning, what triggers her? What were you, if you can remember, what were you about to do or say or feel when she comes in to shut it down within the body? We don't want to be in a place of fighting her. We're just being in a place of curiosity and understanding how she moves and fits into your day-to-day, into who you are, into the patternings of who you are, and into your nervous system. And in that curiosity, we're just identifying her not as a threat that we want to get rid of. We're actually just witnessing and saying that we see, affirming, I see you. I know you're here. And I know that you once kept me safe. Can also affirm that you're actually starting to learn a new way. You just want to get to know her, not in an entangled way, but in a sensation-based way. Like, what do you notice with this archetype when you are in presence with it or aware of it? What sensations do you notice in the body? And this curiosity, this practice is not something that you do all at once. You can definitely sit in meditation and bring that energy in and just sit with the sensations in the body. You can also just bring the questioning in, the curiosity, and actually allow the curiosity and the vibration of the curiosity to exist in the body and as a part of your day to day. And just notice what you notice. Just be open to seeing how this expression is and how this feels and what you notice when you start to touching in on this Death Mother archetype. It also too allows you, when you do it in a way that's playful and curious and reflective in the day to day, not all kind of intense and once in a very formulated meditative way, is that you can touch in on her or the fringes of her without actually going too intensely being in connection or sitting with her. You can kind of just play on the periphery of her and just notice in your body what feels when it feels too much, and you can kind of step back and just be more in your own body and have more of a separation between you and the energy of the Death Mother archetype. And you may just have, like, when you have that kind of playful way, is that you can just notice different things throughout your day, different interactions, different experiences that may trigger a more close relational feel to her, or memories that you've had from previous experiences, or just kind of echoes in the system of a place and space in which you've been in dialogue and connection with this archetype without even knowing. The next practice that you can do is in and around grief. And grief is a really important and integral way to be with mother wound and to learn how to remother yourself. And grief, again, is such a sticky, deep, dense portal into some really deep places and spaces within yourself, within your lineage, within your relationships. And so, again, take the time and space that you need to be with these types of contexts and these deeper places and spaces. And grief rituals are a really great way to navigate and build relationship and connection with grief and build kind of this flow and this integrative way in being with grief in small, consistent, embodied ways. The mother wound lives in unfelt grief. And because we don't in this culture have any real connection or communication or ancestral scaffolding in and around grief, we tend to turn from grief. We don't know how to be with our grief and with another's grief. And when we're exploring unfelt grief that lives inside the mother wound, that grief does not need a ceremony or retreat to move. It just needs permission. It needs a body that will let it through. Each day, finding one small moment to let something be felt, not performed, not processed into story, just felt. So putting your hand on your heart and just asking, what is the grief that needs to move today? It might be something specific, a memory, a moment. It might be nameless. Let it be nameless. Let your exhale carry it. Let your eyes soften. Let your body shake if it needs to. 30 seconds of real feeling is more healing than an hour of talking about feeling. And if we allow feeling to be here, emotion to be here, the body will process that in 90 seconds and it will switch and change. And sometimes grief can be gratitude and grief can be a tear. It can be uncomfortable. It can just be being present. It can feel heavy, can feel flat. And so we just touch on that grief in that moment for that 30 or 90 seconds and we allow it, we just be present with it in the body. We allow it to be here. And if rage comes instead of grief, That is grief wearing a fiercer coat. So let it come too. Let your rage be here. Let it have its expression by moving your body, stomping your feet, pressing your hands into the wall, sounding it through your throat. Your rage is not dangerous, it is data, and it is life force that has been dammed up. The very essence of rage sparks the very creation and how dynamic life is as it's birthed, as it switches and changes, as it renews itself, as it dies, as it's being reborn. So allow it to be here and be present with just for a short period of time. The next practice is about reparenting your parts, and parts work is done primarily in a therapeutic setting in the clinic space with me through somatic therapy. Just to give you a little background about parts work is each one of us are made up of a multitude of parts, and some of the parts are exiled, some of the parts are very present and active in our day-to-day, and some of the parts that we have come in to lead us in our day-to-day without us really consciously knowing. And parts work really is about understanding who the core self is and allowing consciously for the core self to lead all of the parts that we have within us. So when we're reparenting our parts and when we're discovering our core self, we're really doing this in a way that is integrated into grounding, integrated into somatic therapy, into how it feels to notice sensations within the body, in knowing who we are. And the last practice that I'd like to share with you is in and around parenting your parts. So each one of us are made up of a multitude of different parts that have been formulated throughout our life in order to lead, to guide us, to protect our vulnerable parts. And a big part of parts work is actually discovering your core self part and how we can actually have that part consciously lead all of these other parts around us and supporting the parts that we have that make us who we are in a way that they're witnessed, they're heard, they're identifiable, and they're part of the whole formation and experience of who you are in your day-to-day. Some of the parts that we have can be hidden or exiled, and the parts work that I do is relationally in the somatic therapy, in the nervous system field, and is done in clinic space. And so as we're working with parts work, what we do in the day-to-day in order to discover these parts of ourselves and to get in contact with the core self is to learn about who we are. And the way we do that is through the practices that I've just shared with you, with the grounding, with the anchoring day-to-day and understanding what it feels like when your body is regulated, is safe, is calm, is embodied. And that grounding also gives us a lot of information in and around what it feels like to be in our core self, because our core self is grounded and a rooted, deeply rooted part of who we are. Also, too, in learning about our core self is understanding and noticing sensations in the body and noticing when those sensations are here, the sorts of people that we come into contact with when those sensations are present, the experiences in the present as well as in the past. And we start to bring reflection and curiosity into the sensations, into what our body is feeling like at any time throughout the day in relation to experiences and people. And we start to bring some curiosity, not story. We start to ask questions and reflect on different presentations, different sensations, different things that we're noticing in the body to start to learn about who we are. And when we start to learn about who we are, we start to discover all of these different parts that we have. And primarily, we start to kind of tease open who this core self is, who this grounded sense of you is at the center of your being. And when we discover this, then we can start to reparent. This core self can reparent all of these other parts. And then we start to have a congruence in the system, and we start to contact and cultivate that reparenting, that archetypal mother that we can reparent ourselves through and with when we have mother wound and we're navigating and tending to the mother wound within ourselves and in our lineage. And I want to kind of also put into the space here that when we're actually meeting the mother wound and tending to it, we are also broadening and expanding our curiosity, not just for our body and our nervous system, but also in our lineage, also the storylines, particularly in our mother line from our ancestors. We start to bring curiosity in and around how we were formed, what brought us here, what are the stories of our mothers in the lineage? What are the stories of our fathers in the lineage? Where are we from? Where do we come from? What array of people and stories brought us to this point right now in how we are living, in how we are showing up, in how we are not showing up, in how we are noticing or not noticing sensations and feelings in the body. And when we start to excavate and bring curiosity to those ancestral stories, then we start to map our mother line. We start to map our own system, and we start to bring greater acceptance and love and compassion into those storylines, into the stories of our ancestors. And we can start to tend to the ruptures and identify the ruptures in that line. And then we can go in and repair those ruptures in our own system in order to have a greater understanding and reverence and reparenting not just ourselves, but also our ancestors in the mother line as well. And this is work that I do within the clinic sessions as a somatic psychotherapist. So if this is something that you're interested in playing with and in and healing within yourself, then you can book through www.thesomatherapycollective, and we can do this together in the relational field and get some real deep transformational healing in your system. When we're working with practicing in the day-to-day and tending to the mother wound, is that connection to earth, to Mother Earth, to life itself is really important when we're grounding daily and just feeling the earth and feeling her and life in relation to our own system. That is also a really great way to start to cultivate and tend to the mother wound, as well as connecting with others around us and really leaning into those connection points with community and with the collective as well, and just playing in that field. When you feel grounded and you have a regulated, calm and grounded and in flow nervous system that can identify and really feel a sense of safety within the nervous system, within the body, within the environment, then it is much easier to connect with others. It is much easier to be vulnerable. If that safety is not there, if you do not have a mapping of safety in your system and you feel that's too vulnerable, then you need to slow down and you need to bring it back to your system, and you need to get some work done in your nervous system to start to identify what calm, what safety, what regulation feels like in your system. And when you've got that mapping in your system, then you can start to move that out into a wider context and into community and environment. If it feels too scary to have connection with community or with others because you don't have that safety in your system, because you're living in that mother wound, in that hyper-vigilant space where you're constantly seeking validation from others, then again, you need some support in a clinical space with a somatic therapist in order to map the safety in your system, in order to find places and spaces where you can actually start to play in the relational field and play with and map and build what safety feels like for your system. Mostly when we're dealing with the mother wound and we're healing the mother wound, it really brings play. Play is really important. Also a vulnerable piece. Play is really important. And we can start to introduce play more through a very non-confrontational way. And that's what I've been talking about in and around curiosity. Bringing curiosity in is a type of play. There is a low risk to being curious because you can do that in such an internal and such a very subtle way that you don't need to place yourself in an outwardly vulnerable situation. So just bringing it back to curiosity and playing in that field of curiosity of what this feels like, what that feels like, sensations, noticing. What does it feel like in your environment? How does it feel like to be in your body? What does it feel like to be in contact with Death Mother? Even what does the mother wound feel like to you, and where can you locate it in your body? And just being curious and just curiously reflective in and around the layers of what the mother wound is for you, and even what reparenting looks like for you, is a way to bring in play. Everything shifts and moves and should be in flow. Nothing is set in stone. And if it gets solidified and set in stone, that is an indicator that you're coming from a place and space of mother wound energy. And also too, that dynamic has an energy of this death mother archetype and mother wounding as well. So that's also a really great way to map on what is engaging with life and what is actually the wounding that you're engaging with. And life is always dynamic, it's always flowing, it's shifting, it's contradictive. There's a lot of gratitude really layered into life. There is grief, there is anger, there is joy. It's a multitude of things that are happening simultaneously in this dynamic pulsation of life and living. And if that quality is not there for you, then it has solidified into and stuck in this kind of cycle of wounding, which will be linked and anchored into a deeper relational wound within the system, within the storyline, within the mother line, within the ancestral lineage. Before I close, I want to say what this work is not. It is not cutting your mother off or your family off. It is not forgiving her before you're ready. It is not spiritually bypassing the harm that was real. It is not fixing the relationship with her. It is not waiting for her to change or asking for her to change. It is not something you do once and complete. It's not like a 5-10 step program. It is a daily, lifelong tending because it is in the culture. We are all impacted by mother wound. Even if our mother was available, even if our mother was connected and provided a stable and safe environment, we are still impacted by a mother wound, death mother culture and systems of oppression that we come up, that we're agitated against consistently throughout our day, throughout our lifetimes, ancestrally, generation after generation. Tending to the mother wound and healing is a daily turning toward. It's like a love letter to your own soul, to your own lineage, to life itself. It is like a gratitude practice of thank you so much, Great Spirit, Mother Earth, God, whatever you call that life-affirming spirit or energy. It is a daily gratitude practice. Thank you so much for breathing me, being here with me, supporting me. Let me be of service to you. Let me be of service to myself. What is calling me inwards? What do I need to tend to today so that I'm closer and more connected to life and living? It is a daily choice to be the place where the pattern shifts. And some days that will feel like a revolution, and some days it will feel like nothing more than putting your feet on the floor and saying, I'm still here and I'm still choosing this. And both of those are enough. And when things are crazy and there's overwhelm and you feel kind of pulled in different direction as this wound can and will do, moving it back into just this present moment. Presence is tending to the mother wound. Presence is tending to life. It is meeting life where it's at. And the days that I am and the moments that I am completely overwhelmed, completely overcome, bereft, rageful, grief-filled, confused, in pain, what I do is I turn to this part within myself, this life-affirming force within me, that's underneath you, this connection with life, with God, with the Creator, and I turn and I bow and I say, show me what I need to do next. Please show me. I am here, I am present, I am breathing, and that is sometimes, more often, just exactly where you need to be and is enough to meet the wound. This is not about lavish, huge, big, cathartic ways of being and tending to this wound, though they are valid too. This is more like a drop every moment, as much as you can do in every day, into the container of your being, of love, of life, of affirmation, of gratitude, of service, of connection, of deep love and reverence, of sacredness, of affirming who you are, of accepting who you are, of tending to the collective, of being present, of just being with pain and rage and grief, of accepting yourself in all of your forms, in all of your expressions, in all of your creativity, and being and holding that with deep love and understanding that that is miraculous, that you are in your very essence so miraculous in every moment of your day, a miraculous creation. And remembering that power and embodying that remembrance. So you did not come to this work by accident. The fact you're here listening to this, sitting with these ideas, feeling the places in your body where this lands, that is not random. Something in your lineage is ready to shift. Something in you is ready. And the women behind you, all the women in your line who never had the words, the space, the safety, they are with you in this. You are not healing alone. You are healing for them too, as well as the patriarchal lineage as well. You are also healing for them too. You're centering life, you're centering the children and the women who come after you, whether they are children of your body or children of your community or simply women who encounter a more rooted version of you. They will feel the difference. This is how the world changes, not in grand gestures, in nervous systems that learn to rest, in bodies that learn to feel, in women who learn to belong to themselves again. In the mother wound tended, not perfectly but persistently until the rupture is repaired, until the thread holds, until belonging is not something you search for, but something you are. You are not broken. You are being remembered. Before I let you go, 2 things. The first is simple. If this episode landed for you, if something in your body shifted, if something was named that has never been named before, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Leave a review. And if you feel moved to share this episode with a woman you love who needs to hear it, this work spreads the way all good things spread. Woman to woman, heart to heart, connection to connection. You sharing this part of the collective healing. It genuinely matters. And the second thing is, if you are feeling the pull to do this work more deeply, if you're ready to stop circling the wound and start tending it with your body, with your lineage, with someone who can hold the map with you, I want to invite you to work with me one-on-one. My one-on-one somatic therapy sessions are where we go into your specific nervous system, your specific motherline, your specific story, and we build a practice of healing that is rooted in who you actually are. Not a formula, not a program, a relationship, a return. You can start with a free 20-minute clarity session, a gentle, grounded space to explore what's alive in you and whether working together feels right. Book at the somatherapycollective.com. The link is in the show notes. And if you already know you're ready, if something in you said yes while you were listening, you can book a full one-on-one somatic therapy session directly at the somatherapycollective.com. This work is worth doing. You are worth doing it for. Till next time, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode of The Unfuckwithable Woman. The Unfuckwithable Woman is hosted by Briony Montgomery of the Somatherapy Collective. Music by Finn Holloman. Photos by Beth Cronin. Find Briony at www.thesomatherapycollective.com, on Instagram through Briony Montgomery and the Reclaim Me Project, on YouTube through @Nervous System Support, on TikTok through Briony Montgomery. If this episode moves something in you, subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps more women find their way here.